Well, good morning, I guess. I'm used to afternoon storms. Good morning. It's 10:10 in the morning here, and I am jumping on our digital platforms to cover some severe weather here now across parts of central Illinois. And really, this is for the northern fringe of our area, but it also does include some of our friends that are to the northeast of us here up in Kankakee and LaSalle, Peru, and Chicago and places like that. So we thought we'd jump on and just cover a few things here right now and check things out here. So as you're watching, let me know where you're watching from. And if you have any questions, we'll check on that from time to time. I also would like to make sure that the stream is working. And it looks like a number of you, things are popping on there and checking in. So we will cover some things here now and watch things as they work on through. This is our squall line coming on through. We talked about the concerns for that now. It's now approaching the Chicago Metro here, the west side, Kane and Kendall County. In fact, they did throw a tornado warning out on this, and that is for parts of Will and DuPage, and it looks like Kane and Kendall counties. Tornado near Aurora moving off to the east. That'll be heading towards Joliet, Romeoville, and into the southwest side here. So this is just outside of our area. Downers Grove, it'll be south of St. Charles, north from Joliet to the north there. And so this is where that little circulation that's showing that they issued the tornado warning. In addition to the tornado warning, the storm is aligned north to south with severe thunderstorm warnings. And one of those warnings does include parts of our immediate WCIA3 viewing area here. That's going to be for the northern half of Livingston County here. And that's where we've been concerned. Northern Livingston, northern Ford, northern Iroquois counties have the greatest potential for severe weather with these storms that are coming on through. And so we do have that warning that's in place for those areas. When we widen the view out to our actual coverage area, we will not be talking a lot about places like Springfield, Decatur, Mattoon, Charleston, Effingham, Taylorville, Shelbyville, even down towards Paris. There's no storms, so we will not spend a lot of times that's down in this area. The severe thunderstorm watch does also include Bloomington, Normal, Champaign-Urbana, and Danville. But at this point, I think the severe threat is far enough north here where I feel good about things for now. That may change, though, and I'll show you some of the model guidance and different things like that that are coming our way here, because we could see some additional development pick up back here. And if this happens, that maybe allows for the storm risk to carry a little bit quicker to the south there. So we'll keep a close eye on that. So we're largely here for really this part of our viewing area. Iroquois County, Ford County, Livingston County. We have a lot of legacy viewers in Kankakee County. Back in the day, WCIA coverage area used to include Kankakee County. Long story short, it doesn't, but I know we've got a following up there, and we still cover them. These are the areas that I'm most concerned about. So from Pontiac to Watseka and points north is where the greatest potential is for severe storms. And this will be over the next hour and a half. By noon, it's very likely that this line has already swept through and is into northwest Indiana. This southern edge here may be lingering in northeastern Iroquois County still as we get approached the noon hour, but it's moving pretty quickly here. It is no slow roll here. It is a fast mover that's carrying on through. And so we'll be kind of watching that. I'll widen out across the region. There's additional storms in northern Indiana here. Those are some pretty intense storms. We also have these storms in southeastern Ohio, another line down there. And let me throw on the radar that will correctly show that there. This is the local radar we've been looking at in Chicago. There you can see that cluster that swept on through and some additional storms developing here in northern Indiana. We'll be watching. Here's this backward C shape. That's a big old wind bag right there. Big wind producer coming into Chicago Metro. The southern end of it will clip the northern parts of our area. Can this either back build or, number two, there may be a boundary that's left behind that kind of carries more into the northern parts of our area close to I-74. That could also serve as a focus for severe weather development here as we continue to monitor things. So largely for a lot of us in our WCIA3 coverage area, it's quiet. There may be some pop-up thunder showers trying to blossom. Overall, there's a fairly strong lid on the atmosphere here locally, but there's this boundary here that these storm clusters have been working their way on through. And those storms developed this morning when I came in just northeast of our area. This batch just happened next. And we'll look up the pipeline here. There's some additional storm development in North Dakota. Maybe that'll be something that follows later here. We'll take that as it comes, but we're taking each line one at a time here and watching to see what happens. Let's start looking at some of these storms here. First off, in Indiana, I'll start there. A quick mention. This storm here, it's in the Knox area, Knox, Indiana. In fact, this area has been impacted by some pretty strong tornadoes so far this year. They've got baseball-sized hail on that storm there, and that is in Indiana, Stark County, Indiana. destructive hail from that storm from Knox to Aldine. And back to the west, those storms continue there. We do have the tornado warning. That's the main storm here for DuPage, Kane, Kendall, and Will counties. And you can see here, that's this red box. This orange box is the severe thunderstorm warning. Most of those warnings are for 70-mile-per-hour winds. Hail is not expected to be a concern here. This is not a hail-producing event for us. And so that's some good news. We don't have to worry about, having hail with this line. And we continue to monitor things with that. I'm going to start from north to south here, and we'll start up in the Chicago metro, work our way south into Livingston County, and keep an eye on things. But what I've got here is the severe thunderstorm warning up into McHenry County here, and the Algonquin area to St. Charles. We will see warnings into Lake, the rest of DuPage, and Cook County before long. It doesn't look all that impressive on the northern side, but as I switch on our velocity, this here is the intensity. The velocity is how things are moving. You're going to see some bright colors pop up here. Those bright colors are some of those intense winds, and I think that tells the story a lot better here as we go down the line here. Really, this seems to be right along Illinois 47. If you're familiar with 47, you go from Mahomet Gibson City north to Dwight, and you continue off into northern Illinois there. This is leading edges, crossing 47 from Yorkville up into the Kendall County, Kane County areas. And the tornado warning is for this feature right here. That actually really stands out. If you look here, see these bright colors. Those are some really intense winds coming into Sugar Grove and the Bristol area. That tornado threat is going to be right in here along the leading edge. But these winds are really pushing out hard there, and could be some potential for some 80-mile-an-hour gusts with that, which can do damage similar to a tornado there. They did trim that tornado warning back. Here's Route 47, if you're familiar with that. Yorkville's here, Kendall County here, and this will be carrying it towards Oswego and Plainfield and Lockport and parts of southern DuPage County there, northern Will counties as we move here in the next little bit. The other thing is we just got the new severe thunderstorm warning. See this pink outline here? This pink outline box includes it's going to be Will County and Cook County, DuPage County, and parts of Kendall, Kane County. That pink outline means they're issuing the severe thunderstorm warning for 80-mile-per-hour winds. And let me put on the data to check that out here. So there we go. They're just describing that as a destructive storm with 80-mile-per-hour winds for this new severe thunderstorm warning as that storm races off to the east. That's going to be north of Kankakee, but that's a highly populated area. There's probably going to be another round of some pretty significant power outages up there in the Chicago metro. Let's drop more to the south. Considerable damage potential with the severe thunderstorm warning in Livingston County, 70-mile-per-hour winds. It's not the leading part of the bow echo here, but there still is some potential that these storms can strengthen a little bit more into northern Livingston, and it will likely graze far northern Ford and Iroquois counties. Not by much here. The line is probably no further south to me than Pontiac and Watseka. So if you're south of Watseka, south of Pontiac, I lean right now towards you being okay. We're kind of looking at the northern edge of this and thinking that this could be a bit of an issue. And I'll pull up the wind. The reflectivity didn't look all that impressive here. As we look at the velocity, again, there's still some wind in here. This, by and large, stands out a whole lot more from downtown Chicago down towards the Manhattan Peatone exits and points to the north. There still is some wind potential with the rest of this line, which is why that severe thunderstorm warning has been issued. We'll kind of keep an eye on that, but perhaps this is going to be a big-time storm that's coming on in there. I'm going to pull up our cameras and take a look and see if we can peek at the Pontiac camera here in a second, and then we will check and see if we can look at the cameras in Chicago as well. So there's Pontiac looking more to the north and west right now. Some pretty intense storms up that way. That is going to be something that we monitor and keep an eye on. We've got this camera here. And then I'm going to bring in some of our Chicago area cameras. And bear with me here. It takes me a second. We'll look at the Alder Planetarium camera real fast. That one is looking into downtown Chicago. Here's the O'Hare camera popping up in a second, if I can click the right button. So there's O'Hare, and again, O'Hare is more north of where the worst of the storm is. This is probably more going to be a Midwest. O'Hare and Midwest, both are going to have delays. So there's Midwest Airport right now. Both of them are going to have some issues. No doubt about that in my mind here. So we expect to continue to see that. We'll pop up another camera here and take a peek at it. there you can see watching some of those storms that are up there in the Chicago area. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up our media exchange, see if we can't see some of the other cameras that are up there. This basically gives me a portfolio to all kinds of cameras, which can be really convenient, really nice for that. Not there. Let's get me the hub. Okay. It takes me a second here. Here we go. We're going to browse the map and pop that up. You can see some of the lightning off there in the distance. It's always interesting. There goes the plane taking off, getting out of there before anything happens. And we don't have any other cameras that are on the south side or southwest side. It'd be great to have a camera by Naperville or Yorkville or Joliet, Downers Grove. So we'll kind of keep our eyes up that way to see what's going on. Back to the radar. For the rest of us here, the threat for severe weather is pretty low at this point. We're really just focused, one, a little extra awareness needed for McLean, Champaign, Vermilion counties, just because we're in the watch. Northern Livingston, Ford, and Iroquois counties, you draw a line right there. And anything north of that white line is where this line looks to handle. It's just going to graze the northern parts. But in recent days, it seems like that's been the area that's been hit the hardest up there with these storms. And so certainly going to see what happens. That trail end maybe doesn't look quite as impressive. Maybe we're organizing more to keep this more into Will and Kankakee counties. They did extend the severe thunderstorm warning in Kankakee County for 70-mile-per-hour winds. That'll be the Chemans exit. It's the Casey's before Kankakee. If you are looking there, if you know what I'm talking about, you're driving north on 57, you hit the Casey's. That is where that severe thunderstorm warning issues. And so maybe this slips just north of Fort and Iroquois County, but not by much. We're going to keep an eye on it here. But boy, is the Chicago Metro in some trouble the way this looks. And think a couple of weeks ago, they had some 500,000 customers out of power there. So just get a text from one of my friends up in Wheaton here. Let's see here. I'm going to get a little update from the National Weather Service as well. I can see what their chat is. So, yeah, they're saying that through DuPage, Northern Will in the next 20 minutes, straight line winds locally exceeding 80-mile-per-hour winds capable of producing tornado-like damage there. They've not gotten any reports yet, but certainly they're going to watch and monitor things with that. So let's talk here about severe weather alerts in our area. Again, we're just kind of on here out of an abundance of caution and keeping an eye on things. Big time storms to the Chicago Metro. Yeah, it's 10:24. This is my quote unquote break period. So it gives me the chance to follow you. And again, I can see all the chat here for Facebook, X, YouTube, whatnot. And so we're really just looking at northern Livingston, far northern Fort and Iroquois County, right on the line there. This is really turning into a Kankakee, Joliet, South Chicago Metro issue with these storms coming on in. McLean, Champaign, Vermilion counties are included in the watch. This watch goes until 2 p.m. So that is something to note here. So far, I don't have a lot of power outage numbers from the northeastern part of the state, but we do have about 7,000 customers out in the northwestern part of the state. But that's going to be changing pretty quickly here. Meanwhile, in Ohio, from that storm line that went through, there are 180,000 outages. And that's going to be from, let's see here, for basically south central Ohio, a lot of outages from those morning storms that came on through. And So yeah, that's the current alerts there. Severe thunderstorm warning, northern Livingston County, 70-mile-per-hour winds. Fort and Iroquois, not in a warning yet. We may scrape through without it. The concern is that southern end here. If I'm going to show this, and what I want to clarify is, if a storm comes through your area, this is the maximum expected winds. Pontiac to Watseka north, if that southern edge can strengthen and move on through, you could get some 70 to 80 mile per hour winds. We can't rule out those gusts as far south as I-74 if storms happen. The question becomes then, this afternoon, do we see additional storm development? Now, I'm going to start taking a look at some of the weather models, and we'll see how they're doing. A lot of them do not start correctly. So this one right here, already I know right out of the gate, looks nothing like what is happening. There is no storms from Bloomington to Springfield to Jacksonville. It is rubbish. We can throw it in the trash. We're not going to look at that because if it doesn't start right, how can you expect it to end right? If you think back to math class, as soon as you put a wrong number in the calculator, everything else from there is wrong. So not even going to spend time picking at that one. Let's look at this one. It's actually not doing terrible. It's got that North Indiana's big hailers, and it's got the line to the north. Maybe timing's a little off. But the question becomes is, as we go into the afternoon, here we are, 1 o'clock. Are enough of those storms able to sneak on in? And then look what it does here. This is kind of new. I've not seen this do that yet. But it tries to develop some storm activity. Bloomington, Champaign, Danville, 2 to 4 p.m. And what that is that's the trailing outflow boundary. So I'll show you here what that is. As those storms north go through, they'll leave an outflow boundary. That may allow for some intense storm development here. Guidance so far has not shown that. This is actually the first time I'm looking at it and seeing it say, yes, that actually could be what happens here. And so if that's the case, it's kind of a recent development. One, this could actually lead to some really intense winds. Two, it may allow for a tornado potential here, especially if storms can ride that boundary. So Champaign, Vermilion, Edgar counties, kind of this area, the enhanced risk covers these areas. Just because these morning storms are going north does not mean we are in the clear. We get those morning storms north, we see what kind of interaction they have with the atmosphere. Remember, we've talked all week and even into the weekend. It's a domino effect. One round of storms influences the next. Some questions were there. How do we influence that boundary there? And some of the new guidance is saying, hey, you're going to have storms pick on through. Let me get a different angle here. And I think this may show it a little bit better. So this may show it a little bit better. You can see the general cluster of storms in northern Illinois there. And let me take a peek at that. It's close. Maybe it's a little further south, but it's doing a decent job here. As we look, notice it carries those storms off to the east. Now, what's happening is an outflow boundary is being pushed south from these clusters of storms, and it may settle somewhere into Ford, Livingston, Iroquois County, McLean County. And the concern is now, once we get to 2 o'clock, things are drying out. We're getting some sunshine after 2 p.m., but the potential is we could have some storms really erupt here, which would be a very interesting thing to see for Champaign, Vermilion counties, Ford, Iroquois, McLean counties, and maybe even a little further south. So that's something to watch. It's just a trend that we're going to have to monitor here. It does sound like we've got a tornado warning in Kankakee County, just north of Iroquois County. So I'm going to pull this in, and we'll take a peek at it here. They've warned basically from the Bourbonnais exit north now for Grundy and Kankakee and Will counties here. And the wording on this is going to be for potential tornado and widespread straight-line winds now into the Chicago area. There's a chance that some of you watching, and I'm curious, if anyone is watching in northern Iroquois County, you're up by Ashcombe, you're up by Martinton, Donovan, places like that. You're up by the Hideout Bar and Bait here, over by the Willow Slough. Maybe you got a cell phone alert for a tornado warning. I'm not sure. Sometimes what happens is the polygons will be for certain areas, but if you're here and your phone tower is connected up here, maybe you get that alert. This is not for Iroquois County. This is for northern parts of Kankakee County here. It does not include the Kankakee Metro directly. It's going to be from the Bourbonnais Parkway exit north. So if you're familiar with the big Pilot truck stop here, you get off to cut down to all the shopping malls in Bourbonnais. It's from that exit north, including Manitou and Peatone, where that new tornado warning is. It's also going to include up towards Manhattan. It's going to be Joliet South. It's going to be into Will County here, north of Moments, and continue in that direction. And what we'll do is we'll just take a peek here. Likely what's happening is this storm cluster is lifting north. I think the radar is going to show some spin right in here as these storms interact. And maybe it's more centered along that axis point where they intersect there. So let's throw on the velocity and see what's happening with that. And you kind of see these little spots in there. They're probably getting ahead of things and saying, hey, as these interact, we could see some spin in that. That certainly could be on the table for us here. Not seeing much concern in northern Livingston County. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll check in on that camera later at the Pontiac camera. But they're saying capable of producing tornadoes and extensive straight line winds with this Kankakee County issue. So good. Some folks are saying, hey, Martha's saying nothing in Ashcombe. Ronald saying nothing in Iroquois. That's good. That's great. Sometimes we've had issues where, we've had a tornado warning in Benton County, Indiana, nothing in Iroquois County, but sometimes the wireless emergency alerts on cell phones cross the county line when the warning itself does not. And it doesn't say, you are under a tornado warning. Usually it says tornado warning in our area. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. So they did also now add the rest of the Chicago metro under a tornado warning here with these lines. And that is some intense winds coming now, crossing into the Romeoville area, up in Downers Grove, Naperville, and into much of DuPage, Cook, Will counties, where those storms are there. They're having a real problem up there. Martha saying, we are under a tornado warning now in Ashcombe. No, Martha, you are not. You are not. There are no warnings in Iroquois County. Sometimes cell phones activate outside of the counties. You're under a severe thunderstorm watch in Iroquois County. Sometimes when those tornado warnings are close, people's phones will go off. They may be, south side of Kankakee. Oh, my phone alerted me, a tornado warning in the area, but they're not actually in that because their cell phone tower is connected to where that tornado warning is. If you have weather call, you only get that warning if it's your specific home address. And then if you have a weather radio, you're in the same county, you get an alert. So no warning, Iroquois Ford County at this point, something that we'll be watching. Again, I saw... who said it? Somebody. Patricia saying, how about focus on the weather in our area like Champaign County? We got no weather. There's no weather right now here, but you just missed us talking about what can happen this afternoon. And we aren't talking about certain areas because if there's no weather, we are not going to waste time being like, hey, Decatur, look at a nice day. Springfield, it's hot out there. Effingham. There is the severe thunderstorm watch. This cluster of storms north. Maybe this cluster lifting north here is actually going to spare northern Iroquois and Ford counties there. So we may avoid this line coming on through. The concern is what there is, and as I look on radar here, is there's this outflow boundary that's kicking out from it here. And as that outflow boundary does, storms could fire on it. There we go. That might be a better way to view it. Storms may fire along that, and that boundary is going to move more to the south here, which can help spark storms more into the southern parts of that severe thunderstorm watch area. So very curious on how that could play out here. Kelly is saying sirens and Cheban's. Yeah, there's the prime example. Cheban's is on the county line. Half of the county is Kankakee. Half of the town is Iroquois County and Cheban's. So, they're saying, oh, we've got sirens going off. A lot of times, if there's a part of a county issued in a tornado warning, the whole county sirens go. Here's the thing, though. Every county is different. The current thought for, in Champaign County, they can sound this, I say we, they can sound, John Dwyer and the EMA, they can sound sirens off for certain parts of the county. Some counties don't have that technology. Some counties, they got one button. They go, and boom, and all the sirens go off. Some counties will issue sirens and sound them for tornado warnings. Some will sound them for 80-mile-per-hour winds. Some will sound them for large hail. It just depends on what each different county and municipality decides on. That's all their decision. We don't have any control over that. What I often say is if the sirens are going off, it means you have to get more information. That's important here with these types of situations. Get more information and figure out what's going on. In Kankakee County, it's for the tornado warning now for the Bourbonnais exit north. And that's going to be up towards Manitou, Piatone, Monee, Manhattan. We've got here now downtown Chicago in a tornado warning. That is probably a tornado on the ground right here. See this little swirl? And look how close that is. I would not be surprised if one coming into the National Weather Service office in Lockport, if so up in Sugar Grove, they got significant damage. I would not be surprised if the National Weather Service in Chicago is sheltering in place. We'll see if the radar can hold. The radar data is trying to update right now, but it's struggling a little bit here, it looks like. And we may have several tornadoes. So, folks, right now you may be experiencing a little history in the state of Illinois. This may be now over 200 tornadoes in the state of Illinois in 2026, based on the way things are trending right here. There's up in the Chicago Metro by Plainfield, tornado likely just crossed I-55. Likely another tornado coming into Downers Grove. That came through Naperville moments ago. So if that's what in fact is happening, I'm just checking some of these other areas out real quick. Bear with me. We could be over 200, which is crazy to think about here. We probably have done it based on what I'm looking at there. And then there's additional areas of rotation: Wilmington up towards Manhattan, Manitou, Peatone, and there they just filled in. They're just taking the big old red crown now and going shading the whole thing. So downtown Chicago to Bourbonnais, the entire stretch of 57 under tornado warnings, 80+ mile per hour winds. The power outages that will be coming in Chicago are going to be pretty impressive here. I have not had a chance to see if there's a debris signature. Let me look here. That one circulation is darn close to the radar, so we'll see. But looking at that signature and being familiar with how storms are, it's not going to surprise me if there's at least a weak tornado on the ground there. This stands out to me, a big blue spot. Let's go back to our velocity and see if there's anything there. We can't just look at a blue spot and say, that's debris. We've got to co-locate what's going on. And so actually what that is there is if you kind of put your eyes there at 88 and 355, there's going to be a clear spot that shows up. So that's the clearing that's showing up ahead of the storm. So that is not debris. But it's very likely that at least some weak tornadoes are moving on through with these particular storms. So, Heather's saying Mantino. That's right. I knew that. Manitou is Mason County. Manitou, Mason County. Mantino is where this other storm is. So apologies on that, getting my towns backwards there. So yeah, big problems up the Chicago Metro. Thankfully, this is avoiding us. The concern was, we saw these storms coming. There's a lot of instability, a lot of wind coming with them here. That's probably very close to a tornado now through Downers Grove, heading towards Oak Brook, heading towards the Oak Brook Mall. Let's see here. There's Winfield. Some intense winds now just came through Joliet and Lockport. Romeoville, possible tornado very near Lockport and Romeoville. Farther to the south, that is an interesting little signature there on I-55 north of the Wilmington exit. Have to watch that very closely. That's going to carry it towards Peatone and Frankfort, places like that. They're all just little bitty spots that we're looking. Closer to home in our viewing area, not seeing rotation in Livingston County. The wind doesn't even stand out to me all that much here, which is fantastic news. Dwight, Odell, areas north of Pontiac. And the storms even don't look that impressive there. In fact, let's go back to our cameras here, and we'll take a peek. So there's Chicago. You can actually see the squall line kind of sneaking on in. What we're going to do is bring that full. I'm just checking a few things here. Taking a breather a second. Checking my friends in Chicago. Got a camera on the south side. I wish we could pull the audio. That would be really, really neat to be able to listen to things here. Most of our cameras up there actually don't look west, which is interesting. That's O'Hare Airport right there now. O'Hare airport. The tornado warning is, let's see here. Is that going to be just south and west of O'Hare? But they probably got a ground stop now, if I had to bet. Okay, I don't have any other good cameras to look at here, unfortunately. Okay, well, that's about the best camera we've got to look at now as I peek around at things. Let me go back and just double check a few others here. Again, if you're kind of jumping on, you're like, hey, what are you talking about? Why are we not talking Central Illinois? We are looking good in Central Illinois. I'll take a view at some of the cameras here. We'll pop on the Midway camera now, just kind of peek at that. There's all the planes there. They got a ground stop, it looks like, at Midway as well. Storm's coming that direction. We'll pull out this camera from Chicago. Things looking a little bit darker, more ominous coming on in. I also have the Willis Tower and the Hancock building. So, oh, that one doesn't work anymore. That's too bad. And then, come on, get the Hancock one up here. Maybe that one went off. Maybe this went offline. I don't know. I've not seen that before. We'll go back. Let me check out the Pontiac camera as well here. I think I'll be quicker at this, but this computer is being slow. So here's the Pontiac camera. So it looks like maybe that leading edge of the remnant boundary to the south is coming on in, but I don't have concerns at this point. Kind of looking at things. I think Pontiac's okay, and I think largely most of Livingston County looking good. And I honestly think at this point, Fort and Iroquois County are probably faring well as here's in addition. So that's going to be something that we watch. Let's go back to radar. We'll kind of peek at things here. And I actually don't think that I'm going to need to stay on this stream much longer here. We've got the Chicago storms coming on through. What I'll probably do is mute it and check back in. But you can kind of see that northward lift here. That pulled storms more north of Kankakee, which good news for us, not so good news for Chicago, Northwest Indiana. They're about to get slammed over there. And it's crazy. While we've got all this going on in Northwest Indiana, there's actually a couple of supercells with baseball-sized hail or larger, and they don't look that impressive here. But you got those severe thunderstorm warnings with such large hail showing up in there. So Dwight probably getting a little shower rolling in, maybe a thunder shower here. But largely the wind and severe threat looks like being carried north. Not a bad problem for us. But, boy, I just think that power outage numbers in Chicago are going to come screaming here soon. Let's get an update and see if they have numbers now. Okay, LaSalle County numbers are just coming in. They got 5,000 outages there. We've got 3,000 in Kane County. And it takes sometimes a few minutes for those outages to come on in. But when you see winds like that, first off, that's going to be an intense wind, also going to be potential tornadoes embedded within that wind. We'll just pick one of these spots here, right over Makina, between Frankfort and Orland. That's telling me that information. I'm going to do. Let's do a little average here and see if it gives me those details. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I got to figure out what's going on with that. But I would like to see the information. Show me the information. Here we go. The query on that is, wow, 90-mile-an-hour winds. Let's try it again. I'm gonna click. It's going to tell you a box, but I can see the information behind the scenes here. 80 to 90 mile an hour winds right in there. And that's going to come across I-57 right before I-80, kind of in that south area there. I think it's Lincoln Parkway, right in that area, really going to get hit hard. And then you still got this intense wind as well, further down to the south and west. 70 plus there from Manhattan down towards the Wilmington area. That'll be Peatone. We talk about Kankakee. Somebody mentioned in the chat that they were in the Kankakee Walmart, did I say? I'll tell you what, I'm not worried about the Kankakee Walmart. I think the south side is fine. There'll be some wind here. Don't drive north. But when we look at the line here, really the Kankakee proper and points south in a lot better shape than areas to the north here. In fact, they just pulled that tornado warning in northwest Indiana. So a lot of folks up there having issues with that as well. And so Kankakee, I feel good about where you're at, what's going on there. Iroquois, Fort County, I think we're good at this point. Now, I want to go back to Future Track, and I do want to look at that here because this is a very important thing to look at. The thing we know is these storms here, maybe that's a little far south on what's estimated there. Perhaps I can adjust a few things and make it look a little bit better. The time now is 10:46. We're a little early, so I can actually manually adjust a few things here. It looks a little more like that, wouldn't you say? Right about there as it's crossing, and it might be slightly more south, so that's probably a good approximation. I can slide that data around to better fit the case study here. I think we're going to have to watch really closely, specifically Livingston, Fort Iroquois, Champaign, Vermilion counties. Those storms race to the east. There's a boundary that kicks off on the backside. As we get to 3, 4 o'clock, look what happens. There could be some storms that really erupt quickly. Those are a concern to me. I'm concerned here, the I-74 corridor, really from 2 to 7 o'clock. And that may be down into Douglas and Edgar counties. So, you know, you're thinking Bloomington, Normal, Farmer City, Clinton, Monticello, Champaign-Urbana, Paxton, Gibson, Southern Iroquois County, Vermilion County, Douglas County, Edgar County. If guidance here, and it's picking up on things fairly well, there's an outflow boundary that allows for some redevelopment, some rapid redevelopment, 3 to 5 o'clock. And by 6 o'clock, those storms exit. Notice Springfield, Decatur, Mattoon, Charleston, Effingham, nothing for you. Maybe some pop-ups, very brief showers. Severe storms, though, primarily the I-74 corridor as they race to the south and east. So that's my main concern here. Is for some of that redevelopment. And so we'll be watching that pretty closely to see what happens. In fact, I'm probably going to be making a new graphic here to get an idea of that potential. Because what I want to do here, give me a second, is I could pull some of this guidance here. Some of the guidance that wants to bring these afternoon storms in and wants to bring in excess of 70 mile per hour winds with them. And it may be a small area, but you get the idea that the rest of the severe thunderstorm watch that's not getting storms now could be in some big trouble. And then I do want to look also, I'm just checking some data behind the scenes. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. But I'd say Bloomington, Champaign, Danville, Pontiac, Watseka, maybe down to Paris. We'll have to watch things very closely here this afternoon. Just double checking. Pontiac camera, they're turning a little bit. Keeping an eye on. National Weather Service we'll go back to radar, they did just up the severe thunderstorm warning for Kankakee County for 90 mile per hour winds, and that's going to be Bourbonnais exit north and east. So moments into Pembroke Township, northwest Indiana. That cluster there has got some really intense winds right over the Manitou area. So that's a concern here moving on through. So that new severe thunderstorm warning that just came on out, it's 10 Get a post out here. So just kind of watching that. You see that pink outline box, Manitou to Pembroke, Moments, southern and southeastern Will counties, all that intense wind coming on through. Certainly something to watch. And big problem here for the Chicago Metro. Let's see if the outage numbers have updated at all. We're still holding at 16,000, but you know, these storms are moving through now. It takes a little time before you fully get the awareness of how many outages there are. It usually takes a little time here to update that information. So, you know, ComEd will be reporting, Ameren, some of the local co-ops up there. But again, thankfully for our area, these storms have trended north. However, there is a chance, let me reset here. I'm going to kind of highlight the area, and I've been suspicious of that this morning. These storms trending a little more north leaves the atmosphere untouched. I tend to think the potential is there for some redevelopment later this afternoon. And I'm going to circle this area as best as I can. You know, let me redo that. That is a curvy line here. Let me redo that one more time. You're watching. I am not an artist, folks. I need to redo that again. There we go. That's my area of concern for this afternoon. I'm going to do a heads up post on social media. Some of the guidance now indicating that. But I was wondering, okay, if these storms end up north, push a boundary south, there we go. You're all watching me do some art all at once here. Kind of pick up on things. So that's kind of the area to monitor where this outflow boundary ends up. So we'll keep an eye on that with how things are moving. So I'm concerned Livingston, Ford, Iroquois, McLean, Champaign, Vermilion counties, maybe down to Edgar, Douglas, parts of DeWitt, Hyatt County. We'll see exactly where this boundary is. But we could get a few isolated storms to pop up there. Yes, this morning round is going on through. Remember, it's a game of dominoes. These dominoes lifted north. That means this atmosphere here more untouched. We stick a boundary through it. We can have some big problems there. But boy, Chicago just getting hammered right now. And some of you have been commenting in the chats I've seen on YouTube and on Facebook where, man, look at that. I mean, basically from Manitou to Peatone, up north into the South Chicago Metro and even farther north into Chicago. But really, you know, if you're at 57 and 80, kind of in that area here, and south, that's going to be a big problem. And I tend to think that there's some embedded tornadoes with this. There might be a tornado right over Money. They did just confirm the tornado here as well. That was the other spot at 80, at Country 80 and 57. Interstate 80 and 57 confirmed tornado now working through. The velocity shows that backwards notch. It's either been indicated or spotted. Let me see what the official word is from the National Weather Service. Flossmoor is where that's at. So they're confirming the tornado now. We've hit it today, folks. This is going to be over 200 tornadoes now for the day today on 2026, the way things are heading there. And these storms still have some real estate to go. Let's check the correlation coefficient. I don't see anything there. It doesn't show up. Well, is that going to be it? Let's see if the new update has that there between Country Club Hill and Sunnycrest. quite the windstorm there. I am glad this has stayed north, frankly. Livingston County, Pontiac's clear. Okay, here you go, folks. Here's the other thing is velocity is kind of picking up on that here. See, let me make sure I've got this right here. That's the boundary that I've been talking about that's going to settle in and allow for storms to erupt. That boundary is going to end up somewhere when it keeps pushing south. It's going to end up more oriented something like this. And that's where storms can erupt. Now, will that boundary end up here more south, a little bit further north? Wherever that boundary ends up, that currently is coming through Pontiac area, that's going to be a focus for potentially additional severe storms out there. So that's what I'm going to see. Bryce, I do not have the terminal Doppler access, unfortunately, on this software. There's little Doppler radars at some of the airports and whatnot. I don't have access to that, unfortunately, but I think we've probably done it. Let me get a Facebook post up here. Let's see what the National Weather Service is. They're also now just talking about that potential redevelopment. So that does not surprise me here. Let me get this post out about that. But boy, that is some intense wind coming through the South Chicago Metro. And while I'm waiting on that, power outage numbers, see if they've refreshed it all. Still holding at 16,000, but I know that number is probably a lot higher by now, the way things look. It doesn't take a mad scientist to know that there's been some incredible wind that's blown through up there and moving in that direction. So with that being said, so it's 10:58 a.m. Oh, wow. The power outage numbers, folks, just kicked up to 51,000 in the state of Illinois. Grundy and Will County reporting thousands of outages along with Kendall and Kane County here. And that's just the latest update. It's a little bit delayed here as those storms race on through, but boy, you are seeing intense winds here. That right there, let me put on storm relative velocity, crossing into Indiana stands out to me as what would be a potential tornado. There's probably another one embedded there. There might be one even up in there where they've got these confirmed tornado warnings. So really intense storms here moving on through the Chicago Metro, Kankakee, north and east now, and they're racing as well. They really are taking off. So we'll likely see the severe thunderstorm warning drop for the Livingston County area shortly. I do not see Iroquois and Ford County getting a severe thunderstorm warning at this point. If it is, let's say it does, it'd be Martinton, Donovan, Beaverville, up towards the Willows Slough. But it's going to be more just north and east of there where these intense storms are working their way on through here. 10:59. It's a mess up there. So we'll kind of watch and see what that trailing boundary does and how storms can redevelop. But, the consensus coming together that, yay, hooray, we missed in McLean and Champaign and Vermilion and Ford and Livingston, Iroquois counties. We didn't get storms. It's all north of us. Well, two things. Again, now the atmosphere is entirely untapped in our area here. Number two, the boundary being kicked south It's now trailing through Livingston County and will eventually push farther to the south. Somewhere stalls in this area, and that's going to allow for some intense afternoon thunderstorm development. So I'm going to watch things pretty closely here. It doesn't surprise me. That we've got this severe weather risk this morning. I think I keep saying Manitou as well. Judy is saying pronounce it Mantino. So here's Manitou. I keep getting it switched up. Where is it at? There it is. There's Manitou. It's Mantino is up here. And maybe my brain is just tired with that mess going on there. But Mantino is right there. So Bourbonnais, Mantino, Piatone, Moni. Storms are now clear there. I mean, look at the leading edge. It's already surging into northwest Indiana. We'll be off of the stream here in the next 15 minutes. That's good news. Kankakee getting wind and rain, the most intense activity north and east. So we'll continue to watch. Tornado warnings in northwest Indiana. Valparaiso, hometown of Adam Sharinsky, there. There have been at least some confirmed tornadoes in this, as long with 80 to 90 mile per hour winds. And that's something that we'll watch. Let me check the National Weather Service and see what they're saying. Let's get to most recent. Of course, they've got a lot of stuff going on here. Boulder Hill, trees down. Tornado-like winds, regardless of tornadoes or not. 80 to 100 mile an hour winds now moving into northwest Indiana into Lake and northern Newton counties. South suburbs, over 100 mile an hour winds. Tree limbs down. They have gotten hit up there, which is rough time. Yeah, there's going to be some significant power outage in the Chicago metro from these storms that are carrying on through. Livingston County, you're in the clear, officially. We already knew that. Iroquois and Ford County, you're watching Watseka. Thankfully, this is north. It probably does look dark. Don't get me wrong. I think it does look dark. Some folks are probably like, oh, man, it looks kind of dark and scary. You're seeing the clouds from storms up north. What sometimes can happen, and no event is the same, but what we had come through when Hoopeston got hit by that tornado, that morning we had storms come through the same area. Later on, we had some intense storm activity develop farther south. Similar idea is storms this morning are north, maybe a couple hours earlier even. So this afternoon, storm development expected more into our area here. So that's why this watch goes until 2. It's very possible it could be continued beyond that, or maybe even expanded a little further to the south. I don't think still Decatur, Mattoon, Charleston, Springfield, Shelbyville, Effingham have to worry about this. But I really think here we'll draw a line. The areas to watch. Oh, that's not the right line. Let me get the correct line here. Maybe I need to just turn that off. The area to watch this afternoon is going to be north of that white line. That's where we'll have to watch for redevelopment. So if you live south of that white line, Mattoon, Charleston, Sullivan, Decatur, Lincoln, you're south of it. I think you're okay today. Going to have to watch closely. Bloomington, Normal, Champaign-Urbana, Danville, down to Paris. And still keep an eye on Livingston, Fort, and Iroquois counties with those storms that are coming on through. So very much going to have to monitor to see what happens with this this afternoon due to these storms that are carrying to the north here. And just widening things out, that early morning cluster of storms now moving to West Virginia. And then there's a little storm activity in North Dakota. We'll see what that does. That's a ways away. But of course, we take this one set of dominoes at a time. All right, folks, here's what we're going to do. Because these storms are pushing out into Indiana now and out of the Illinois area, and our coverage area does not have any immediate threats at this point. So going to be moving more into Indiana pretty quickly here. We're going to wrap up our coverage and kind of monitor things from afar. But there's going to be a lot of damage, a lot of power outages from these storms here. The leading edge is now into northwest Indiana. Still a lot of heavy rain and wind here on the Illinois side. It's still that wind potential, but the leading edge is where the worst of the storms is, and it is racing to the east. Kankakee still got a warning. The worst of the wind is off towards the state line east of Moments. Will County, it's now east towards the state line. Chicago, it's in downtown, moving across the lake. So that threat wrapping up pretty quickly. And I do not think that they're going to extend the severe thunderstorm warning into northern Iroquois County. If they did, it'd be a slice, Martinton, Donovan, Willow Slough, Beaverville there. But that's it. And that's probably going to be hard to that's going to be something we'll just watch and see if they actually do that. When I look at velocity again, I don't see as strong velocity signals here. It's going to be close, right through Pembroke Township, moments. You know, it's close. There's the Hideout Bar and Bait up there. Maybe they pull that warning, but it looks to be following to the south and east there, that strong wind continuing in. So that's what we got. They're still confirming that tornado warning in the Crown Point area from here. So a confirmed tornado now in the Merrillville area. I wonder if Adam Sherwinski is watching or listening. I'm not sure what he's up to. The National Weather Service says they're detecting tornado debris. Maybe our radar is a little behind. I'll check the other one here. Look at a peek at what it's doing. Yeah, there was a definite tornado that may have touched down northeast of Herscher in eastern Will County and carried across the state line into Lake County, Indiana there. The wind potential is still there, but the National Weather Service is saying they're warning us for 100-mile-an-hour winds now as it moves across the northwest Indiana. And that's for this big old line right here. So power outage numbers, before I go, we will recheck it. And I think, too, is by just being on here, you know, we push those storms away from having widespread wind damage potential. So they're still at 51,000, but I have a feeling it's like every 10 or 15 minutes we get an update. There's probably 100,000 plus outages in the Chicago metro right now from these storms that are moving on through. So good news that it avoided us. We'll keep an eye on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the mic. I'm going to leave radar full. We're going to keep it centered here in the Iroquois County area just to watch for Beaverville, Martinton, Donovan, Willow Slough. But we know that the worst of the storms is just north. And if there's a need, I will jump back on and talk about it for Iroquois County. I don't think that's the case. I think it's going to miss you just barely. And then I'll probably end this by 11:30 at the earliest. But we may not be done yet. We may still have severe storms develop again because these storms are further north. They kick the boundaries south. We're unstable. We can get some additional storm development after 2 p.m. So that'll be something that we will watch closely here as we move on through. Thanks for following us here. And hope those of you who watched maybe enjoyed it a little bit. And had the chance to follow up, but we will keep you updated and see how things progress here. All right, folks, I will mute the audio and I'll put a little message up, and then we will see you maybe later. If not, I'll have the latest forecast updates at noon. Well, that was quick. Severe thunderstorm warning just issued now for Iroquois County here, and that's just for that trailing end here, which we'll keep covering things and talk about it. But that's the regional view here, where this is a very small portion of our area that's included in this warning. And so just so we are all on the same page, we're back. I literally just took my phone out, saw we had a severe thunderstorm warning. Wasn't sure they were going to do it. They did. So we are here to cover. I don't necessarily disagree with it by any means. There still is going to be perhaps some wind. Clifton, Watseka, Beaverton, Martinton, Larable. Boy, I'm going to get roasted for that one too. Sheldon under the severe thunderstorm warning. And it's going to be primarily just because there's I believe it's going to be for 60 mile per hour winds. Let's see. They've done 70. Okay, they did 70 mile an hour winds up there until 12:15. Will it last all that way? No, because the warning does go into Iroquois County and it goes into Indiana. It's moving pretty quickly there, but we'll just check here and make sure. And I'm going to see what the National Weather Service says. I think some of it is they're like, we don't have time to totally look at it. We're just going to issue that warning. But this is the core of the wind there. So the Willow Slough is located right here. The Hideout Bar and Bait is right there. Here's Beaverville. Then you've got 41 up there. That strong wind is going to just nip the northeastern corner of Iroquois County. The worst of the wind, though, heading into Indiana. And, I mean, it's moving so fast here, where North Indiana is in some trouble with these storms coming on through. Probably some winds, 60 plus possible in here. Clifton, Shabans, Ashcombe to Martinton. And then you can see here, this is the trailing boundary that picks up. That boundary is going to slide south and lose momentum and stall out somewhere close to the I-74 corridor. And that's going to be what we just have to watch for. So again, I don't see, I think we can all agree, compared to this, that doesn't look terrible. We can still have some wind in there. Don't get me wrong. But up north there, northwest Indiana, they're advertising 100 mile per hour winds. Valparaiso, Wheatfield, Hebron, Couts, up into Rensselaer. Those are the areas where that intense wind is coming. And that's going to be a destructive storm there. That's moving on through. So that's kind of what we're watching. Let me pull up the chat, see if anyone's got any observations. So just kind of talking a little bit here with Iroquois County, northeastern part of the county, and then northern parts of Benton County. It's probably just an incidental warning, if that makes sense. Like we're just, there's some wind there. Given what's happening north, it makes sense to just add this warning here to the south to accompany for that. I still think that the Iroquois County area, not likely to have significant wind, but that wouldn't surprise me. I think the bigger feature that's going to be is, can we get some additional storm development, this trailing boundary that affects more of this area here? So that'll be something that we watch and keep a close eye on. So again, Watseka, you are under the severe thunderstorm warning. Clifton, Shabans, Ashcombe, Martinton, Iroquois, Donovan, and Sheldon, all in that severe thunderstorm warning for 70 mile per hour winds. I don't know if there are 70 mile per hour winds with this. If there are, it's probably northeast of Iroquois and Martinton, far northeast part of the county, up towards the Pembroke Township area, with those storms moving on through. They're advertising 100 plus mile an hour winds now moving through Valparaiso. That is something else here with those storms further to north. And let me check the power outage numbers. There should be an update by now. There's not an update. They don't have an update on that, which is fine. It comes and goes. It does it as it is. Let me look at Indiana. Indiana numbers have not been reported yet, but Illinois is up to 51,000, and maybe we'll get an update here shortly. I don't remember if it's every 15 minutes it scrapes or every 20, but I have a feeling that number is north of 100,000 power outages in the Chicago metro as those storms move through. I mean, look how fast. I'm going to do an hour loop. In an hour, 1 hour ago, these storms were on the western Chicago metro, Aurora down towards the Streeter area and Grundy County. So in an hour, they went from there to there. The distance here, what I can do is I can actually measure that. The distance that traveled, I mean, that's 75 miles. That's crazy how fast these storms are moving. They are just accelerating to the east very quickly. So north central Indiana, Fort Wayne area, down towards western Ohio, those storms are going to be just really trucking along. South Bend, Elkhart, Fort Wayne, probably going to be a lot of power outages for that. So that's the thunderstorm warning there. Iroquois County, we're here, just in case. But you can see the most intense wind is off to the north there, coming through quickly. So if anyone's up in Clifton, I know we got Carrie up there follows quite frequently. If you've got anything, Martha's saying the wind is picking up in Ashcombe. I'm not surprised by that. I don't think it's particularly strong, but you're kind of getting that leading edge here. So you can kind of see where the things are. That's the leading edge of the wind. There's probably some gusty breezes. There could be some 60 to 70 mile per hour gusts at times. The favored area for that to me is up here in the northeast part of the county. So you get up here east of Beaverville, that's kind of where some of that strongest wind potential may be. And as I look here and just sample that little area, get an idea of what's going on. That's the warning. I'm going to look at the radar. It's saying there could be some 60 gusts up there. Not far away is that 70, 80. And then in this area is that 100 plus coming through Valparaiso with the update there. So again, yes, there's some wind. In Iroquois County, Papineau, Martinton, Papineau, haven't talked to you much. St. Anne, that leading edge has come through. Boy, let's see if that power outage number updates. Woo, 129,000 customers out of power. We don't have outage numbers from Cook County yet. We just got the Will County ones. It's 64,000 customers. Grundy County, 40% of the county is out. 25% of Will County is out. And it's still early, too. So let's see, that's scraped about 15 minutes ago. And in Indiana, wow, Lake County, Indiana, 104,000 customers out of power. That's 63% of the county. And Newton County also has a number of outages. So we're over 250,000 customers in the Chicago metro now out of power. We're close to it. The nice thing about digital platforms, what I like about this is we don't have to talk all the time, right? And I can have a drink of water and nobody complains. Or on TV, we got to be all prim and proper. But gives me a chance to take a break a little bit more. But man, just crazy damage up in the Chicago area. And let me see if the National Weather Service had any confirmed wind reports here. You know what else is crazy? They're talking about along the beach, the wind is so strong, it's pushing water so much up in Lake Michigan. They're going to have big surges, waves, in some pretty big waves up there. So that's a fascinating read where, they call it a seiche. Basically what it is it's like a bathtub. If you push all the water to one end of the bathtub, then it slides back and just sloshes back and forth. That may be happening in Chicago from these storms that are working their way on through, which is just somewhat interesting to think about here. Let's see. Let me pull on the regional radar, get a wider view here. I am thankful that those storms ended up just north like they did here. Because if we brought those storms more down into our area, 30 miles, and now we've got big power outages in Livingston, Fort Iroquois, and most of Kankakee County. So far, the numbers have not shown that to be the case in that area. It's Will County that's been hit the hardest. And then in Northwest Indiana, if you're familiar with Lake County, Indiana, that's a populated area. That county alone is 63% in the dark, 104,000 customers. That's this county right here. And the next county, getting into Porter County and eventually carrying over towards Michigan City, Elkhart, South Bend, Fort Wayne, Northern Indiana, really going to get slammed by these storms as they come on through here with the 80-plus mile-per-hour winds. And some reports of 100-mile-an-hour winds and tornado potentials within them. So we likely have broken the number 200 with that here. Susan saying, Watseka's under severe thunderstorm warning. Yes, you are. If you notice, though, the more storm activities in the Martinton area, towards Donovan, Pompano, Beaverville, up that way. The warning's a little bit further south here. There's some wind that's kind of pushing ahead, but it doesn't strike me as particularly concerning. There could be some gusts of 50 to 60 maybe a little further south, but that even may be hard to buy here. The thing that interests me more is what we look at is we've got this trailing boundary that's going to stall out. And if I back this up, you'll see this red line that's extended here. This boundary will continue to the south and likely stalls out somewhere in here. And that will be the focus for some additional storm development here later on this afternoon. So in play for severe weather still this afternoon, yes, largely our counties here, McLean, Champaign-Ford, Iroquois, Vermilion, Livingston. We missed storms. We still have a risk here. We're going to have to watch 2 p.m. onward to see what happens in these areas. Severe potential, tornado potential may be there, given that upflow boundary extended northwest to southeast. So just be aware that we talk about these storms north. We are far from over in these areas here. And we'll have to keep, Farmers City, Monticello, down into Edgar County, areas of Douglas County as well. We'll keep an eye on those counties right along the border there, but I don't expect along 121, Lincoln, Decatur, Sullivan, Mattoon, Charleston. I think you're too far south. That means severe threat, very low. Storm threat in general, very low for you. Could be we see some pop-up activity somewhere in that area, which would be the potential for us as we move on through. So we'll keep an eye. Again, the key word is pop-up. They may cluster together and start to put some wind down in a few spots, but there's no guarantee that happens, and so we just have to monitor and keep a close eye on things. Just got a text from Andrew Pritchard. He's Chambana weather. He's like, he's in Piatone North. He says it got smoked up there. That does not surprise me. So here's Piatone. He's up in this area dealing with the wind damage there and kind of covering that stuff. And he texts me and says they got smoked up there. So that's not surprising me with this wind bag that came on through. So that's what we've got. In fact, he just posted a picture on his Twitter where a church steeple has been blown over and there's power lines down in Monee. Wow. So if you're on X, go follow him there. Has there been Jason asking any confirmed tornadoes in the last hour or so? Lake County had a tornado west of Crown Point. There may be one in Valparaiso. One of the things, though, is that with these storms, yes, they have tornado warnings, but the whole line of storms has 80 to 100-mile-an-hour winds, right? 80 to 100-mile-an-hour winds is similar to a tornado on a much larger scale. So that wind potential that's here sliding on through, yes, there is certainly the potential for tornadoes, but tornadoes are small. Everyone's getting walloped with wind there as this moves across northern Indiana. So some big issues there as these storms continue to work their way off to the east. And thankfully, largely has avoided our coverage area here. We were kind of thinking that may be the case. Our concern was northern Livingston, Ford, Iroquois County. We got a couple severe thunderstorm warnings, but we've missed out on the significant severe that is continuing with those storms there. And that's some good news for us. But, our friends up north have been hit really hard from that. So now our attention will turn. I mean, if we look at temperatures here now, we have been cooking. Things have been getting unstable here. The water is trying to boil. Pontiac 71, Watseka 68, but it's 84 in Champaign, 89 in Lincoln. There's a boundary in here. in between those areas, from the mid 80s to the 70s and 60s, where the rain-cooled air is, that boundary, wherever it settles in, is going to be where that focus for severe weather is. We've been saying I-74 corridor north. I think that largely holds true. We will see what happens here. Lincoln, Decatur, Mattoon, Springfield, Jacksonville, Taylorville, Effingham. I'm not worried about you here this afternoon. I'm much more interested in Bloomington, Champaign, Danville, Paris, maybe down to Tuscola, Monticello, maybe to Clinton. But somewhere in this zone is where I expect storms to develop, and they may try and cluster and push some wind south and east as well. So that's kind of what we'll continue to monitor here. So just kind of monitoring things and keeping an eye on it here. We'll be watching 2 p.m. onwards for some potential severe weather to redevelop back here across central Illinois. Looks like largely the storm activity now is the leading edge of it is out of Iroquois County. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. But some intense storm activity there in northwest Indiana. Another big cluster coming through West Virginia. There's a few warnings up in the North Dakota area. But what we think will happen is on the trailing edge of these storms, right in here, there's going to be that boundary, and that's where that severe threat will return here in a couple of hours. So we'll be watching that pretty closely here. We still do have that severe thunderstorm watch is in effect until 2 o'clock. That's not a guarantee that it stays until 2. It could continue beyond that. So we will watch that closely. And then before I go, just keep in mind, there are more severe weather chances, as if we are not tired of that here. Still have the enhanced risk. I don't think the update's not out yet. So there's the enhanced risk. They did trim that back, but we have the slight risk that's in here. And this will be where we can see some more development potentially coming on in. So we'll watch that closely. They're going to follow that big wind bag south and east. Maybe in here is where some of that redevelopment could happen and why we'll keep that enhanced risk and even that slight risk that's in place. So that's the new update. Tomorrow, whoops, let me reset that here. Tomorrow, we also have a slight risk. There's been a lot of folks so far since Sunday that have missed out on storms. Look at the risk for tomorrow. Areas that are not expected to have severe weather today now have the chance tomorrow. And then on Thursday, still have a marginal risk here for some storm activity to move on through. So we're kind of in the middle of the busy stretch. We thought Tuesday was the chance for the biggest potential. That's played out just north of us, but we'll see what these afternoon storms do. Kevin will be on his way in, and I'll be heading out to the way things sound. But let me just look and see here the tornado risk. I don't have the numbers in the right spot. Oh, that hasn't changed at all. So they're keeping it a 1 and a 3 based on how things are. So we'll keep an eye on it. But, anytime you get an isolated cell on a boundary, there could be some storm potential with that. So that's what we got. All right, that's going to wrap up our coverage here. Again, thanks for joining along. We jumped on after 10, followed the storms, just kind of chatted about things. We will keep you updated in the afternoon round. I'll most likely be heading in the storm tracker. I don't think I have to go far. I may stay in the Champaign-Urbana area and be ready to just go. Once some pop-up storms erupt, if they do, they turn severe very quickly. There is still an if about that. My suspicion was that we will get some, and that to me seems still very possible here in the I-74 corridor. We will keep an eye then for the 2 to 7 p.m. time frame to see if there's any additional activity that is able to develop in our area. Severe thunderstorm warning continues for a little bit longer in Iroquois County. We will keep an update on that. They've cut it back for a large part of the area. Sheldon up towards the Willow Slough is it. But those storms are continuing into Indiana. So we'll keep you updated. And if you need more information, join me on WCI3 News at noon. I'll have updates there. I'm going to work on some web updates and keep things updated as well on my social media page. Thanks for following, and I'll see you at some point later today, most likely. From